Hi, my name is Alina, and together with Eliezer and Leo, I am going to present the topic of creativity and problem solving. I will start with an overview of what creativity is. As Edward de Bono says, there is no doubt that creativity is the most important human resource of all. Without creativity, there would be no progress, and we would be forever repeating the same patterns. Creativity can be defined as the production of novel, useful products or ideas. In order to obtain a patent from the US Patent Office, the following criteria is applied. The product has to be new, useful, and surprising. We can distinguish between two types of creativity. Little c creativity, which includes everyday problem solving and the ability to adapt to change, and the big C creativity. This one is far more rare. It occurs when a person solves a problem or creates an object that has a major impact on how other people think, feel, and live their lives. The creative process can be divided into four stages: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. In the first stage, your brain is gathering information. After all, creative ideas don't come from a vacuum. If you want your brain to come up with innovative ideas, you need to feed it material to work with. In the second stage, you let your mind wander and stretch your ideas. You have to stop consciously thinking about the problem you are trying to solve. The third stage is the moment when one gets the idea, also known as eureka. In the fourth stage, creative ideas need to be polished by critical thinking in order to reach their audience persuasively. Within each individual, creativity is a function of three components: expertise, creative thinking skills, and motivation. Expertise is, in a word, knowledge: technical, procedural, and intellectual. Creative thinking skills determine how flexibly and imaginatively people approach problems. The last component is motivation. Not all motivation is created equal. An inner passion to solve the problem at hand leads to solutions far more creative than do external rewards such as money. This type of motivation is called intrinsic motivation. I also like this quote: "You need an IQ of around 140 to learn enough physics to be truly creative in it. But once you have that minimal IQ, there is still something else that must be there for a person to be truly creative." The next concept I will discuss in this presentation is problem solving. Problem solving can be defined as the process of finding solutions to problems encountered in life. There are two types of problems: well-defined and ill-defined problems. Each of them require a specific approach to solving them. Well-defined problems have specific goals and clear expected solutions. They can be solved using a logical approach. On the other hand, ill-defined problems need a creative approach. Whatever approach we use, it is important to view problems as a challenge or opportunity. There are four steps in the problem-solving process. First, we need to define the problem. Second, we need to generate alternative solutions. Then we evaluate those alternatives and take a decision, and finally, we implement the solution. In order to define a problem, we need to answer the following key questions: who, what, where, when, why, which. We also need to gather information through research, by talking with experts, and through observation. We then try to find the boundaries or constraints of the problem. In the end, we can write a problem statement with specific details about the problem, the scope of the problem, and possible causes. I will explain now three different techniques that can be used to generate multiple solutions. Brainstorming is a widely used method for generating ideas. 3 guidelines for brainstorming. Go for quantity, withhold criticism, and welcome wild ideas. Another technique is mind mapping. This method starts with a concept written in the center of a page, and one will write major ideas starting from the central one. Other ideas will branch out from this. The 6 thinking hats is a method developed by Edward de Bono. This method can be used both when generating alternatives and when evaluating them. The white hat is a neutral one, and it's for facts. The yellow hat is the optimistic view. The red hat are emotions. Green is creativity. Black means realistic judgment. And the blue hat, gives the big picture. To evaluate the solutions and to take a decision, one can use the analytical hierarchy process, the suitability, feasibility, and acceptability matrix, or the cost-benefit analysis. From these techniques, the cost-benefit analysis is well known and involves considering the strengths and weaknesses of each solution. We finally need to implement the solution. That means to take steps to make a solution reality. We also need to identify the resources in terms of time, personal information, money, and equipment. A timeline for implementation is very useful in monitoring the progress. In the end of my part, I would like to share with you a few quotes from Edward de Bono's book about lateral thinking. As the Forbes magazine says, if you haven't heard of Edward de Bono or of lateral thinking, perhaps you have been too busy thinking in conventional ways. Lateral thinking is also concerned with breaking out of the concept prisons of old ideas. This leads to changes in attitude and approach, to looking in a different way at things which have always been looked at in the same way. Lateral thinking is quite distinct from vertical thinking, which is the traditional type of thinking. In vertical thinking, one moves forward by sequential steps, each of which must be justified. In lateral thinking, one uses information not for its own sake, but for its effect. In lateral thinking, one may have to be wrong at some stage in order to achieve a correct solution. In vertical thinking, logic or math, this would be impossible. In lateral thinking, one may deliberately seek out irrelevant information. In vertical thinking, one selects out only what is relevant. Lateral thinking is not a substitute for vertical thinking. Both are required. They are complementary. Lateral thinking is generative, vertical thinking is selective.
Where do engineers find issues in their profession? You see, engineers are problem solvers, and their most important tool is their own creativity. That's how they're able to solve problems and come up with solutions. One of the biggest issues an engineer can have comes down to calculations. It is imperative to an engineer highly qualified to do well his job, especially calculating things regarding the project. Many engineers need to read graphs, do calculations, and simple math, but at the end of the day, they sustain a project that sometimes can affect public safety. And a lack of knowledge in this field can cause a calamity. Legal parameters is another issue engineers confront on a daily basis. When an engineer presents a project to the public, it must have been built according to the legal standards for the safety of the public. Many times, this step is skipped, and calamities or risks for safety of the public occur at a much greater percentage. If these parameters are not met, then they can be punished for it by the law. Permits. When an engineer is trying to build a project or make a service available, a permit comes to play, since it will need approval from legal entities to ensure that the project is being held in a good ethical standard, along with safety procedures. Inspections. Inspections are a must if an engineer wants to launch a product or service. It presents many issues that must be resolved so that it can stand well in accordance with the inspector. An inspector is usually requested to achieve this goal, to ensure that the product or service is executed correctly. Creativity when developing. Lack of imagination could be an issue, but if an engineer has the ability to solve problems, then he or she should have enough intelligence to become or come up with a solution. Sometimes a lack of imagination could be an issue, depending on the problem, but engineers have been trained all their career to solve problems. They know how to come up with solutions that can bring innovation to the industry, and therefore, creativity is their biggest weapon. An engineer must present always good practice and standards. There's four subjects that comes down to this: ethics, integrity, respect, and honesty. All four are team building skills or qualities that bring a leader to the industry. Ethics. An engineer must know what is right and what is wrong. When executing a project, an engineer must hold on to ethical standards, not only for the safety of others, but for the approval of the public and customers that you are a good engineer and have a good conscience to make good decisions, whether they're right or wrong, and always going through the legal phase. Respect. An engineer is a person that will always work in a group or with a team, and therefore must respect everybody to have the same in return. He or she must contribute to the work environment to make things flow correctly. An engineer must be respectful to everybody because he belongs to a public entity and people look after them for safety or innovation of products. Therefore, will always be approached by businessmen, congressmen, public safety, constructions, hospitals, and more. Integrity. An engineer must integrate, push others to do better, make them work as a group, lead and always treat others equal so that everybody that forms part of a team feels good. Integrity brings peace to a group. A work environment that flows correctly will always have integrity since everybody will feel as part of the team and as equal to the other. Honesty. If there is something that an engineer must have is honesty. Besides all these previously mentioned values, he must hold on to honesty. Since it is crucial to give credit to the ones who did work before him or after him or through him on a project from a part of the team and even show where he or she obtained their knowledge or achievement from. All these sources that gave you or gave him or she the knowledge to accomplish the project. This is also known as the copyright.
Creativity and problem solving is a hard challenge to people. As engineers, we will find problems that need to be solved in our careers. Many of them, we may know how to solve them, but others, we will not be able to have a starting point. In these moments, we need our creativity to activate in our brains. Ask other engineers for help and try to solve the problems ourselves. The skill of being creative could be used for any kind of job, from being a writer, accountant, architect, or engineer. Creativity and problem solving will always be needed in order to progress. People need to put challenges into themselves. That's the way humans can now go to the moon and have a lab at their house. Not only engineers can be creative, but all the stories and movies we read and watch have come from a creative mind. All of the buildings people live in were first designed by an architect, and still today babies are being born, and new designs are getting built. The sculptures of our cities and the paintings from the museums are other ways that artists have manifest to show their creativity. Opportunities are always there waiting for somebody to take it. The big challenge is that our creativity helps society go forward and not backward. Creativity starts at our childhood. Since we are children, we come into creativity. We played and created our own world. Later, we drew on a blank piece of paper a place we never knew, a pretty sunshine, a flying car, and a nice tree with some apples on it. That was our imagination being creative in the beginning of our lives. Thanks to all the hard work we have given, today we are learning engineers and are learning how to use an object to create a small lamp and give us light, or a car to be able to go to places, and even robots to help us in our lives. And little by little, recreate that drawing we did as little kids. There are several websites where ideas are started, and the only thing we need is a great mind to complete the problem. Cars already exist. We made drones that can fly. But can you make a car fly? Put the two together, one may ask how if I don't have the equipment. Places will pay for your ideas. I will give you the opportunity to create that one thing that no one has made before. The only thing left to do is to take it and with a creative mind, just as a child, solve it. To be creative, we need more than intelligence, just as Alina had said before. There are several ways of becoming creative. An inspiration will be needed for people to become creative. It's not just to want to create something, it is to find that spark that will give you a mindset that will try to find new ways of looking at things and new forms of doing what has never been done before. Inspiration may come from questions other people ask, or challenges, just as the one Professor Swan sent us for the first individual assignment. We each need to find out what we like in particular in order to be inspired and start becoming creative. Another way of becoming creative is of having new ways of thinking and stimulating our brains. These are possible through exercise and finding out a new routine, such as taking a different route to work, listening to unfamiliar music, and trying unusual food, visiting an interesting store, or even watching videos from people with different perspectives. Doing this and many other activities will give a workout to the brain, and new ideas will easily come into thoughts that later on could be used to solve a problem. We need to take a break from the daily routine and experience the world in new and different ways. Studies have shown that exercise stimulates the brain by creating new neurons in the hippocampus regions of the brain, as our perspective widens to fresh stimulus, so will our creativity. As Einstein said, to raise new questions, new possibilities, to regard all problems from a new angle, requires creative imagination. As we become creative, we can solve new and old problems. We start giving ourselves challenges to solve and create new ways in different angles we never thought of before. An easy example of this is when we as kids on our math class are taught equation solving. They tell us x minus 5 equals 3. Many knew that the 5 had to go to the other side by adding because that was what the teacher had taught. But others created their own shortcut and knew that x was 8 because it could not be anything else. This happens too in our everyday lives. There are problems that are hard to solve and it takes too much time to fix them. For this reason, we should not struggle when problems come to our life. Most likely someone else has gone through the same thing and their ideas could solve our problems faster. I don't know how to do plumbing, but I'm sure that if I watch a YouTube channel, I can learn and do simple things at the beginning and progress myself through time. Being creative does not only help yourself, but others as well. Technology is changing constantly as we talk, and new problems are coming up every day. By taking advantage of it, we can use our creativity to develop innovative ideas that later will be beneficial for our society. As an example of the previous affirmation, we can clearly think about the great advantages that we as engineers can do to improve the medical field, not only in the United States, but also in other countries. Engineers have done so much through the invention of new machines, such as X-ray, MRI, CAT scanners, and others for surgical practices. Being able of using technology wisely and creatively, we are contributing to the construction of a better future. Also, on the artistic field, engineers have helped making electronic instruments such as electric guitar, piano, and battery, which have helped music evolve on the latest years. Laptops, microphones, speakers, and projectors have been made by engineers and helping teachers and public speakers make their careers easier. In other words, there are opportunities everywhere for engineers to put to work their creativity. These are some of the examples, but there are so many that I cannot say at this moment. Here are some questions for you to think about. Where would you start with your ideas? How can society be impacted by a simple idea? Would you start teaching kids engineering to improve the future? Are you willing to help improve the life of others through engineering? How much can an idea influence young engineers' mind? And these are the references of the places that we used. And also, you could use these websites to find out more about the topics that we talked about. And this is our project. Thank you for listening.